Oh,
Host with SPS back in the building. We are getting ready to have another SPS Edge show. That's right. Those handsome gentlemen you see are John and Patrick Rutherford, and we're missing one young man, that being Terry McCord. I think he's either in Chicago trying to audition for the NBA draft, or who knows what he can be right now. But we look forward to having him back right now. He is missed. We know we have Coach Orlando Watkins on the ones and twos. He's in Eugene, Oregon, and we're wishing all the best for Team KJEF as we get ready to take things to the next level. So how you guys doing?
doing great.
Doing good.
Yeah, we had some hot topics, man, making their way all the way up until recently with the news that is happening in the NBA. But I want to start us off with our first topic, and I want to give credit to Aaron Mays, one of our faithful followers. He suggested the topic, and I said this is a great topic itself. Bo versus Sparty. Is the coverage fair? And what I'm referring to are the sexual allegation issues that both of these programs have dealt with. Several years ago, we know Michigan State had to deal with the issue with Dr. Nassar. But now, coming forward, it seems that Bo Schembechler may have been in the know as it relates to the sexual assault that took place under his watch. So the question is it fair? And I'll start with you, Patrick, just to get your idea before I defer to John on that. What do you think about the coverage? Is it fair to even make a comparison, or just what's your overall thoughts on it?
I don't think it's been fair so far. I think it's been more. I don't think it's got the ink that they gave the Spartans. I think the Spartans got dragged through the mud a little bit more. It's not as big right now.
Right.
I don't think it's been fair. But they control the press. They always have. They get the good stuff, not the bad.
All right, I get it. Before I want to shout out Demetrius Black, that's my guy, me here right there, checking in, saying, "What's up, bro?" I'm right back at you. Close friend, probably see him in a few hours, as a matter of fact, but he's checking us out on the SPS Edge on YouTube. We're all over the place. But John, you were saying, I'm sorry, Patrick, you were saying that you think that you don't think the coverage is fair. You don't think the ink is the same. I'll just take that question. I'll just go up to John and say, do you agree with Patrick? And if so, why?
Well, first of all, it's been common knowledge for 50 plus years. The Detroit press and the Detroit media has always favored the University of Michigan. Whether it's the proximity of the universities to Detroit, but, I don't think that's been the reason. I think it's because of alumni from the University of Michigan in those positions have always favored the Wolverines. And what's going on now is just a perfect example of why some people around the world call them the arrogant asses from Ann Arbor. It has been this way for a long time, and I have very close friends of mine that I grew up with that were on the Michigan football team when Bo took over, and throughout his career, he recruited kids. There's kids that played for him that I coached, that I mentored. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, there's no way in the world that Bo Schembechler didn't know that he had a freak in the doctor's office.
Yeah.
It was a standing joke as far back as the 70s. Watch out for your physical at the University of Michigan football. They did things that other doctors didn't do at physicals. Now, Bo knew everything that happened around that place. He ran that place like Hitler ran Germany.
With an iron fist.
Okay? And he knew everything. All right? And everybody talks about this pure guy. That's bullshit. Okay? Those guys, first of all, Bo changed the academic standards at Michigan. He brought in curriculums where those guys, and Bo brought this to the university, physical education, non-teaching track. They now call it kinesiology, where those guys would take all the phys ed classes without going to the education department to get a teacher certificate. He had, and then what's one of the greatest jokes in the history of University of Michigan football? What's the longest, most unhappy day of the year? January 2nd. Because they always got beat on January 1st. But there's no way Bo didn't know. And the stuff with Jim Brandstetter was a joke. He was a joke to come out and, basically accuse the victims here of a money grab.
Victim blaming.
And who knows what's going to come out, but Lindsay, they have, just like Penn State, just like other places, they're trying to protect the brand. They're trying to make the hit, less hard. As far as Nassar's concerned in Michigan State, I knew about this long before the lawsuit. And someone told me, a very influential person at Michigan State told me 8-9 years before that this is going to end up costing the university millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I'm going to say this is going to end up costing Michigan. Now, what about, how does this directly reflect onto Jim Harbaugh, Mel Tucker, Tom Izzo, Juwan Howard? Jim Harbaugh couldn't wait to get in the houses of Michigan State recruits and tell them Mark D'Antonio let rapists play for him. Okay? Couldn't wait to do that. Did that time and time and time again, and used this as partly being the downfall for Mark D'Antonio. So what happens to Jim Harbaugh? Deserves everything he gets right here.
Wow.
Deserves everything he gets right here. And you got to be a human being and stand up. Now, here's the interesting thing that I find out, Lindsay. Where's Lloyd Carr? You haven't heard Lloyd Carr stand up and say, no. Lloyd Carr don't want to hear it. Nowhere. That tells you something, because Lloyd Carr is a good man. Okay, and he's not getting anywhere near this.
Wow.
That tells me a lot.
His absence is very noticeable. How do you explain? I just want, for a second, I want to stay with that point, John. Shout out to our guy, Kevin Marshall, Coach Marshall. He says go blue. He's a big blue fan, and he don't support the crap that happened like many people. So my question is, you got Patrick Ship going thumbs down. So my question is, how do you speak to all those players coming out right now? Is that just blind faith and love they have for their former coach?
Yeah, I mean.
And Aaron Page is saying, tell it, John, tell it. Aaron was the one who suggested the topic. We got tell it, John.
These guys are, Bo, not everybody loved Bo in Ann Arbor, but his football players did. And that's their legacy. And that's who they, listen, I know guys that played for him very well. Friends of mine, okay, that are played for him 40 years ago that still want that identity. before what kind of guy they are, what kind of human being they are, what they've done. They want to live off that being a Michigan football player. And Bo, they're like enshrined, okay? And they're going to go to lengths to protect us. And it's wrong. And I told a very good friend of mine one night, we were sitting and we were having dinner and we were talking, and he played football for Bo in the 70s, and he was a star player, okay? And he's talking about Bo this and Bo that, and University of Michigan this, University of Michigan that. And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, that's the difference between you and Mark D'Antonio. He said, what? I said, Mark D'Antonio told me one time, I don't want to be defined as a football coach. I want to be defined as what type of human being I am. I said, that's not the case with you right now, is it?
Wow. No, man.
And they're going to go to lengths to protect this image. And it's wrong, and it's going to come out in the wash. And this is typical University of Michigan. You know, I get tired of, we can't beat Ohio State because Ohio State cheats. How are they cheating? Well, they're paying players. How are they paying players? Tell me. If you got this proof, tell me. Tell me how they do it. Well, you're just getting your ass kicked. Either catch up or shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is vintage, arrogant asses from Ann Arbor, vintage University of Michigan. They've been like this for a long time. Listen, this is the school that voted Michigan State, don't let him in. Don't let him in the Big Ten. University of Michigan.
Really?
A state-supported school. When the vote came for Michigan State to go in the Big Ten, University of Michigan declined, said do not let them in.
Wow.
So, it's never been fair, and it never will be, but University of Michigan's got some stuff ahead of them, and they better, this board of governors better stand up and do the right thing. And Bo, trust me, guys, when he had interviews when he became a coach, he threw guys off that team before they even went to one practice. He knew that much about them. I know this personally because there's guys that I competed against that I were friends with. And at that particular time, Rudy Tomjanovich was one of my best pals. I hung out there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I knew all those guys. And there's nothing that Bo didn't know. I'll tell you a story. You ever heard the name Curtis Greer?
Sounds familiar. I think I know.
All right, Curtis Greer comes out of Cass Tech High School and graduates, I believe, in 1974. And he goes up to Michigan and he becomes a defensive end, and he's the fifth guy drafted in his draft year. He goes to the St. Louis Cardinals that time, becomes Arizona. But he was the all-time leader in tackles for loss at University of Michigan for a long time. So at that particular time, he's playing for Bo, and they get these cherry jobs in the summer, and it's with GM. They're getting paid back in like 73, 74. They're getting paid $55, $60 an hour working at GM Proving Grounds. So Curtis is going to work all the time. Bo calls him in and said, you've only spent this many hours in the weight room every day. And Curtis said, hell yeah, I'm going to GM making that money. You're done.
Oh,
You're done. You know, your ass is here to play football, not work at GM. You know, I know guys that wanted to take classes and get degrees at the University of Michigan and were capable of. He told them, oh, no way. And this happened to be mostly of the black football players.
Wow.
Oh, no, you'll take what I tell you to take. Your ass is up here to play football. So, you know, all this crap about him being St. Bo and all this other stuff, it's all bullshit. You know, Bo was a bully. And, you know, back in those days, they called the Big Ten, the Big Two, and the Little Eight.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Bo was a great recruiter.
Yeah.
A great running game coach and a hell of a defensive coach. But you had to drag him into throwing the football until he got Anthony Carter. And he always got beat. You know, Lindsey, when you coach at that level and when you play at that level, you have a saying, I prepare myself for the day I meet my equal. Well, his equal was Southern Cal, okay? In Southern Cal, on first down, John McKay and Coach Robinson, they would throw that little out for 6-7 yards, and then they'd only have 3 yards to go. But they always controlled the game in the distance by throwing the ball and throwing the ball early on first down or second down. Bo'd sit up there, he'd run that damn ball, and he wouldn't throw it until it was 3rd and 8, and they would get beat. And they'd lose. So, you know, I think he was a great coach. I don't think he was as great as what people say he was. And the University of Michigan is not, I don't know where they get this attitude. I think it's just the identity crisis of the alumni, you know, but they got a problem up there, and they better look themselves in the eye, and they better deal with it. They had a freak taking advantage of people, and it's documented. They hired an outside agency to come in and do the report. They gave them the report. 850 people. Now who you already got this report. You hired these people outside. What's the problem? Stand up, do the right thing, and move on. You know, the worst part about people when they get in trouble is not to act as much as the cover up.
Yeah, the cover is worse than the act itself sometimes.
And they need to stand up, and they need to face this thing, and they need to deal with this thing, and they need to be honest. Brandstetter needs to keep his mouth shut, go announce the game. You'll be happy next year. You'll be 7-5 or 8-4, whatever. Be happy you still got a job at 70-some, 73 years old. You're still out here. The university's still paying you. You know, thank God that you didn't ever have to go get a real job.
Wow. Well, with that, John is preaching gospel is what Aaron May said. We need an offering plate. So he go pass the plate for you, John. That's Aaron. That question came from Aaron a week ago. And thank you, Aaron, for that question. And thank you, John, for giving us not only your perspective, but just a historical perspective. You know, and my take on it, man, just going to another issue with the university. I mean, you know, the whole issue with the trustee, Ron Wiseman, calling Gretchen Whitmer and others witches, and then for the board of trustees to come out and say, we're not going to do anything. So it's like, you know, and that's Ron Wiseman, who's just the current chair of the board of trustees. So you talk about Bo, and you notice when I posed the question, I didn't say the Wolverines versus Sparty. I said Bo, because Bo is the icon for University of Michigan. So it's unfortunate, but we live in a world, man, where the truth can be as plain as day, but people will go out of their way not to acknowledge that. But I appreciate you sharing that. So with that, I want to take a quick break and recognize our sponsors. I want to thank Horatio Williams and the Horatio Williams Foundation. I'll see my guy Ace tomorrow. We'll be down in Detroit. He's doing some great things with the Hoop Summit. They're doing great things as well as Dick's Sporting Good. and Gilead Sciences. And let's take a quick break because Team Michigan has a great event coming up referring to the basketball tournament. Yeah, just take a moment. I'll be right back. A quick word from our sponsor.
Breaking news. Team Michigan Basketball is presenting a series of basketball tournaments at Grand Traverse Resort and Spa. Get your teams registered today. The first tournament in this series is coming this Halloween weekend. Visit boosketball.com or teammichiganbasketball.com for more information.
That's right, guys. So speaking of basketball, we got some NBA basketball going on right now. I have the actual combine on my screen, which is a good life. But I want to talk about the playoff team that we won't be hearing about, the Philadelphia 76ers. It's to Ben Simmons. I guess my first question is Ben Simmons out of Philly? And the reason I think that's a noteworthy question, not only because of his dismal performance in the playoffs, basically not taking shots, but the fact that supposedly his agent is at the combine now talking to the GM from Philadelphia, and that would be Elton Brand, about prolonging his stay. So what do you think, Patrick, after that dismal performance? Do you think Ben Simmons is going to remain a Philadelphia 76er?
That is a really tough one. That is a really tough one.
A tough question for you, Patrick. That's not just that. You normally have it.
Yeah, you want to say no because of the history and the way that the Philly people are about their team and the passion they have. You'd think that it would be too much for Ben Simmons. Obviously, he has a sensitive trait, and I don't know if he needs a change of scenery to try to better his career, or if they need to get rid of him, that contract, and try to put something else around Joel Embiid. It's a really tough question to go with. I'd like to see him stay, and I'd like to see him maybe try to shoot with that right hand, and maybe really work on getting his free throws better. If he can shoot above 75% from the free throw line, people will start to respect him. And I really can't explain the last 4 games with 0 points in the fourth quarter. It scares me as a fan of Ben Simmons. I'm really rooting for the guy, but I was also telling my dad this the other day. On the other edge of the coin, on the other side of the coin, America is the dominant ball players in the world, and he's from Australia. So, them foreigners, they crack in them pressure times. Everybody's screaming that Luka Doncic's a legend, but he hasn't got out of the first or second round of playoffs yet. Okay, we got the best ball players in the world over here. So I don't know with him. If I was Elton Brand, there's too much shooting and there's too much skill going on in this league for me to sit on a guy that's been that we already put faith into, extended his rookie contract, extended him. He's already a max guy, and he hasn't even improved and then he doesn't take that dunk that day. Like you're not aggressive. You're the second best player on the floor. Like, he does so many things great that when, I think he thinks he's too good for himself. I think because only thing else you can explain it with would be a mental block with the shooting.
Yeah.
But I was listening to Gary Payton say he does everything else so great. He thinks he's so good that he doesn't have to work on that.
Very good.
I
want to put a pin in that. You made some excellent points. I want to go back in that. John, I think you got an encore, man. I got some comments that came up that I didn't get to, that came up a little late. Of course, shout out to he said this historical reference we need to hear is very enlightening. But I also want to go back to a good brother of mine, good friend Jamal Swift. He's a Michigan State guy. He said, from what I've read, it sounds like the situation in Michigan was aimed at men. Men will never get comparable support for sexual assault as women. rightfully so, because men have more institutional support than women. The school itself, however, should be equally as responsible. So I appreciate Jamal, your comments, fam. Is there something to that, to kind of go back to that second, because maybe it was aimed at men, or to John's point, no matter who it was, you were going to get that kind of response that Bo wasn't going to do anything with it.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great point, Jamal, right?
Yep, Jamal.
Yeah,
I call him Sweezy.
I think he brings up a great point, and then I can even kind of amplify on that a little bit. Football players, what do they pride themselves on? Being tough,
being masculine.
So that makes it even amplify what
which makes the perpetrator even more predatory, because they're saying, I know you don't even want to tell.
Ain't no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah. So
I agree with Jamal 100%.
Yep. Shout out to Jamal. So I want to go back to your point, Patrick. You really cracked the code with that, man. I'm not being patronizing. You know me. You just pointed out something. You said Luka, Ben, and let's go back to Giannis. When Giannis, though they did beat the Brooklyn Nets or whatnot, and you can argue whether that was not a healthy team, but it doesn't matter. It's the playoffs. His comment, prior to that final game, it was saying that, acknowledging that KD was the best player. So what you've done is, we hold these international players in such high regard, and we easily let them come and be a part of the culture, but we forget that they're not of this culture. And this is not to be disparaging, but, Ben Simmons, to talk about him is that he's never had any adversity throughout his life. He is in this point. Now, for me, and I want to defer to you, John, to get your thoughts, I think that he has to go. I think that he's going to have to go somewhere, get a fresh start, because he will never be able to get past this point with Philadelphia fans. And he's never going to feel he can start all over until he's physically somewhere else. Now, basically, a lot can be learned from this, because putting on my sports psychology hat, we can learn that these are the accommodations you have to make when you hold somebody up, from what, as a teenager at Mount Verdi in Florida, going on to LSU for a year, and now he's in the NBA. And I was a big Ben Simmons fan, but you made an excellent point, Patrick, that the cultural disconnect that may be there, they can grow up watching American basketball, hooping, but ain't nothing like being out on the court. You know that, John and Patrick both, and knowing what that mentality is like, and know how you can't step back. I know Kevin Marshall knows about that. You can't take the attitude. And to that point that Gary Payton made, shout out to GP, he think he's too good, he don't have to work on that. He's going to have time away, almost rebrand himself by going somewhere else. But more importantly, man, he's going to need some support. And I don't think that we need to look at needing psychological or performance-based support as a negative thing. It just comes with it. What did John Lucas, he told me this at USA Basketball, if you're the best player in the gym, you got to go to another gym. For so long, he's just been the best player. But now you're saying, wait a minute, not only do you want me to just score, you want me to win games? I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday, I was at the Capital City area All-Star game. It was for All-Star players, athletes who were in their senior year, and there was a dunk contest. When I tell you this was the most missed dunk generation of kids, missing dunks. I go into this. For me, I believe that a lot of them, unlike Dominique, which these are the greatest basketball players in the world, mind you, Dominique and Michael Jordan, their classic dunk-off, these kids are okay with the attempt. Oh, you saw me try. That's good enough. We come from an era where, like, dog, you got to throw it down. You got to finish. So many missed dunks that the guy who actually won, his advantage was his size, because he was probably about 6'9" or whatnot. But the kid that had it, he was the one attempting to jump over people, all these things. But I say that to say, I think from a generational standpoint, one thing that separates the generation, and John, you saw this in full effect, referring to, from whence you've come, it was such an expectation to get it done and get it done right. And now that's less of an expectation. But when we start holding people accountable to those type of principles, there's a conflict. Because how we going to hold Ben Simmons accountable to being a serious playoff player when he ain't never been held accountable to nothing before other than being, hey, I'm a good kid out of Australia. So I think you make an excellent point, especially, Patrick, when you bring up the foreign player. Even with Luka having these meltdowns in the playoffs and going off and leading the league almost in text.
Right.
Pressure. That's him. That's him responding to pressure. But we sit and say, "Oh, you were first round draft pick. You were number one. Oh, you supposed to be the man." Like, no. There's something that comes with that, you know.
Yeah.
So what else can we take from that? You know, let's go. Let's stay with this and let's go to Trae Young. So here's my question: is it fair to say is Trae Young really the truth? Just had 48 points the other night. It reminds me of Steph Curry without the legacy that Steph has, being, you know, son of an NBA player and just being, like a better term, the golden child, to where nobody's knocking Trae on his ass. That's just the NBA we're in. So I just really wonder, is he really the truth? And I'm not a Trae Young hater. Shout out to my guy, Deshaun Tate, out of Atlanta, who I won't say discovered Trae, but was hit to Trae way back in his AAU days and kind of has
I watched him
as a sports writer.
Well,
what'd you say?
I watched him back then as well.
Yeah, I feel you. So what do you think? Is Trae Young the truth?
I thought he was the truth for a very long time. Yeah. You know, I was big on him a couple weeks ago as we've been talking through the playoffs about Trae Young, and we were saying was he supposed to act the way he did in Madison Square Garden and such, and last night he had the shimmy, you know, with the three. And I think what makes him the truth is look at how skilled he is. Now, these days, like my dad said, these days, you can't touch them. You can't touch these guys. And, you know, they go to the line a million times. So him being 5'11", 175, 180 doesn't matter. And you see how much skill he has. He was a master of the mid-range yesterday with this floater he's got. He's mastered this floater. If Ben Simmons had that floater, he'd be worth a double max contract. Okay,
double max, huh?
You know, and that was my main point to tie it into. Look at how much Trae Young has worked on his game. Look at Ben Simmons, who's almost a foot taller. 240 pounds. My dad was saying the other day he needs to get in the gym and go coast to coast and work on his layups and this and that. He's 6'10", 240 pounds. He's been laying the ball up and dunking the ball on everybody for all of his career. He's been knowing that he's going to go to the league. What is this, his fifth year in the NBA? I'm not sure. Is this his fifth year?
I can check. Okay,
so let's say this is year 5. He played 1 year. He played 1 year at LSU. He played.
We talking about Ben Simmons? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then he played at Monteverdi. He's been knowing that he's the number 1 pick years before that.
Yeah, that was the whole reason why he went to LSU.
You know, the fact that he hasn't developed this jump shot is crazy, and I think that's what makes Trae Young the truth. Look at how hard he works. Look at the. You know, he may have struggled at the 3-point line last night a little bit, but he's perfected that mid-range floater game so much that it can cover that up.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to go back really quick. I guess my posts are coming up late. Shout out to my guy, Roderick Wilson, another one of my brothers, really good friend, my counselor at times. He talked about Nate Robinson started that one dunk contest over Iguodala after missing 3. So we go blame that on Nate, right? Orlando, I believe he's referring to Trae there, but the swagger's on 10. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he is willing himself to greatness. And Roderick also said Trae is out here changing the rules. He and Hart. Yeah, I mean it's becoming a new league, but I'm just so thrown off, man. Maybe I'm kind of caught in my error that, you know, Isaiah was a tough guard, no doubt, and he took a beating, i.e. Karl Malone. But it's just like it's one thing, like you said, Patrick, to make those moves. But dang, man, I just want to see one time somebody. I'm not advocating violence. Like there's a physicality that comes with this. You ain't gonna just keep doing all that. I wonder how you. Right. What's your take on that, John, and where we are right now with the Trae Youngs of the world, and pretty much this turning into a guard league?
Okay, I'm gonna bring up the last 2 games he's played in. The Game 7 that they won against Philly, and the first game last night against Milwaukee. I believe that you're going to be in a neighborhood of 6 for 42 shooting the three. 6 for 42
in 2 games.
in the last 2 games.
He shot 42
threes in the last 2 games. The 7 game shot 21 last night, I believe. Okay, and I may be off by a couple, but not much. What I'm saying is that he hasn't had his 3-point shot the last 2 games. He has caused havoc by getting into the paint, and you don't know what to do.
That's an old school style of play. I agree.
You know, and then he would throw the lob. So what I'm waiting for is this: back off him a step, have him shoot the 3. Back off him, and as he starts to come, then you got to give help. But you got to keep him out of the paint. Now, here's another thing I think it's important. When he gets in the paint, he's the one that's causing the contact. And then he throws his arms all over.
That's Roderick Wilson's point of Trae out here changing the rules like him and Harden.
Last night, he had 10 free throws in the 4th quarter, made 9 of them.
Yep.
Hey, they had a 5-point lead. Or Milwaukee had a 7-point lead with 4 minutes and 20 seconds to go. He comes in, throws his body all up in the air, and gets 2 free throws to cut it to 5. So to me, back off him a little bit. Why do you go up on him? Look at Lindsay. They let these guys take steps. They let them take the ball and put it in a palm when they're supposed to be dribbling. They're moving their feet.
Yeah.
It is so hard. They want that. But when you get in the paint, start watching the next NBA game tonight and look at how physical they're letting it go in the paint. But for him, for some reason, he's the one that initiates contact. But you gotta, he can get it and he can create. And to your point, I'm waiting just like you. I'm going for the ball, but I'm going right through his little ass. And I'm putting him on a deck. I'm going for the ball with my hand and my arm,
get touched,
but my body.
They can't happen without a flagrant. You see, Roderick Wilson.
Well, yeah, that's what Rod is saying. He agrees. He said he needs to get touched. He said that can happen without a flagrant if it's done the right way. But
yeah, it can be.
They're going to put this hedge around him that he's, MVP type, where they're going to protect him from that. I just wonder what's going to happen, or he hasn't earned the chops yet.
Well, you know what? He's got a little bit of showman in him too, and he is how do you put it? You know how the little guy that plays with the big guy, and Isaiah had this. They got to have a little chip on their shoulder.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
They got to feel like they're getting cheated all the time. They got this complex.
Sure.
Little man complex, and it brings that out of you. So he's,
it's been working for him. It's been working for him.
You and Patrick were talking about foreign guys and U.S. guys. Hey, look at these guys have all played on big stages, but let me tell you something. They earned their stripes on the playground in the neighborhood growing up.
That's right.
And that has not left them.
Hey, because if you ain't had to fight your way out of a hood playing basketball, you ain't been balling, cuz.
You got it right there. And I'm going to tell you, I enjoy watching this year, and I want to answer a question that you brought up earlier. The TV ratings going into the finals are up 39%.
Why do you think that is?
You had 2 LA teams and 2 New York teams, so that's counting, and they don't quite know how they're going to do. That hasn't come out yet, but the ratings up to this point have been up. And I'm going to tell you something. I've told Patrick, Man, these guys are playing their ass off.
Yeah.
These are grown men going after one another. Man, this has been fun to watch. And I'm going to tell you, someone's going to knock him on his ass. It's going to be sooner than later.
Yeah, we're going to see. Well, let's keep going with that. Talking about somebody, who knows, this could be a potential finals matchup. CP3 and the Phoenix Suns, the Red Hot Phoenix Suns, and possibly the Atlanta Hawks coming out of there. And I could see CP3
I would really
giving them the business. So here's my question. I'll start with you, Patrick.
Yeah.
CP3 is going to be back in the lineup. I did see it probably the last 2 hours that he's going to be back in. Is that going to help or hurt them? This team is doing well. They're playing great without him right now. You know, is that going to help or hurt him?
Does nothing but help them. Devin Booker can just go ahead and do what he's great at. He could be great. You know, Chris Paul gets the reins and does what he can be great at, what he's great at. And it's just going to be even better. It could do nothing but help them.
Yeah. We got another little callback. My guy, Demetrius Black, he said, I like what Mr. Pat is saying. I think he was referring to John, saying the league's soft now. Trae wouldn't have survived TAF. We used to play at TAF Middle School. And boy, Trae would have came in there with that. Right. Like, no, you wouldn't have. And that was a nice run. Shout out to my But no, Patrick, you're saying, help me with that. Let's finish up that comment. I know I went back a little bit.
What were we saying?
You were referring about CP3 coming back.
It could do nothing but help. You know, what he's great at is facilitating and being the floor general and being the oil to the machine that's running. And what Devin Booker does great is, you know, straight up pure score, baby. Mamba mentality. I'm going to put this orange ball we got here through this orange circle they got up there. And he does a good job at it. So,
Rob makes a good point. He says CP3 will be the selling force on the road. So that's good. Come back to help them with being on the road and what may come to kind of sell them in. To me, man, that second game they won without him being nowhere in sight, to me, was what this team is going to look like in the future. It's like, hey, I kind of got you guys going, and I'll always be around. And depending on what happens in the next few seasons with this team, you know, he's there but not having to be there. So we'll see. John, what's your take on CP3 getting back in the lineup tonight?
Well, anytime you got a player like him, you know, it does nothing but make you better. But let's not forget that if Paul George makes 2 free throws and a review doesn't happen that changes where the ball goes out of bounds, and it changes the whole scenario, they got to break 3 times in the last minute on reviews that change the rules and dynamics of where the ball goes, and they had no timeout. They got the advantage. But if Paul George makes 2 free throws, it may be 1-1, okay? And don't count out the Clippers yet. They've been down 0-2 in both series, and this was very, very close, very good basketball.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm anxious to see it tonight, but Chris Paul coming back can't do anything but help that team.
Okay, we're definitely going to see. We're going to stay with that. You kind of touched on it a second ago, but before we do, we're going to take a quick break, check on our sponsor, including Team Michigan. I want to shout out the Streets is Talking Podcast Network, my guys, Don Houston, as well as Clarence Babor. Also, too, my guy Horatio Williams and the Horatio Williams Foundation, Dick Sporting Good, and Gilead Sciences. We appreciate that support. But here's a quick news break from Team Michigan.
You know who it is, baby. And I'm here to tell you about the new youth basketball tournament in Michigan. Team Michigan Basketball has done the work. It's prime time. They are PTPers, baby. Get ready for a scary good basketball tournament Halloween weekend at the venue of all venues, Baby Grand Traverse Resort. I'm talking about a diaper dandy, baby. I mean awesome with a capital A. A basketball tournament that is designed with the entire family in mind. Escape to a 900-acre northern Michigan resort just outside of Traverse City. Enjoy 54 holes of championship golf, spa, indoor-outdoor tennis, indoor water playground, fitness center, private beach club, 4 restaurants, shopping, and now basketball. I can't wait, baby! It's the stay to play that will make your day! Halloween weekend 2021. Check it out at www.boosketball.com. Register your team soon. This one is going to fill up quickly. A basketball tournament at a resort. That's a slam, bam, jam, baby!
BC at 9:30.
Welcome back, guys. That definitely is a great time heading up to Traverse City. I've been in that resort. It's a good time. Been on that golf course and lost all my balls out there playing, man. But it's a good time. Want to keep talking NBA Finals, man. I want to thank you guys for what you've been contributing for the next 15 minutes or so. 2 topics I want to touch on. And, John, you kind of touched on it already, but are these NBA Conference Finals good or bad for the league? And I throw that out there because we've been so LeBron dominant. We've been so KD dominant. So it's almost like you can't tell me that there wasn't an expectation there's going to be a collision course between the Lakers and the Nets. I mean, that's probably why they put those teams together. But for said reason, those teams are out. So my question to you, Patrick, are these conference finals really good or bad for the league, despite what ratings we've been hearing about?
I think it's one of those situations that it hurts you until it doesn't anymore. It hurts you.
Right. Hey, man, you sound like you're in an abusive relationship. It's going to hurt you.
It's almost like that, But because, when you're in between the games or you're leading up to the games, you're going to have a lot of talk about there's superstars that are missing because they didn't have enough time for rest or they didn't have enough time to get their bodies right from the short layoff, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody plays really good in a game or, the really good games happen and you get these good series that start
unsung heroes.
Back. And, yeah, you get the unsung heroes, and then that rights that wrong, and it's good for you.
Before I go to you, John, I was going to say
one thing.
Oh, please,
my dad
go
was
ahead.
telling me the other day, you have people watching like my dad who said this is the most that they've enjoyed the playoffs since the early 2000s when the Pistons were good. So
I think what helps is the great unknown. Like we said, if the Lakers were still running things, we know they had a strong chance. If the Nets were at full strength, we were like, it's that that. That's like turning on the game and you see it's a blowout, you don't want to watch it. But if you turn on the game in the fourth quarter and it's tight, you're like, oh, let me check this out to see. And what's happening, to your point, you're absolutely right, Patrick. There's so many opportunities for other players to step up because it's like, who would have thought? We kind of saw some of that in the bubble too. John, are you in agreement with that? If not, just tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you have a player like LeBron James and he goes to the finals, I'll go back to watching Game 7 where they beat Golden State. And Golden State had the lead, and there was under 30 seconds to go, and Golden State had the ball. And right in front of the camera, right in front of the world, LeBron James just grabs Steph Curry, and just holds him right in front of the referee, and not a damn thing happened. They couldn't get the ball to him, and Cleveland comes back and wins.
Is this when he threw his the infamous throwing of the mouthpiece?
Exactly. And then LeBron gets the ball on the wing, and he sits there and he decides what he does. He goes, well, he's a great player, the greatest player of his time in his generation in the NBA.
Yes.
But, man, he's gone. KD's gone. It gives people, because these players know. They know that when it comes down to it, LeBron's getting a tip of the cap from the NBA. From the guys in the stripes. He's going to be able to do what he wants to do. So now it's a wide open field. And, baby, you got guys. Look at Collins. Look at some of these guys. They are playing their asses off because they know it's anybody's game now. And you know what we love about sports? Because America always roots for the underdog. America always loves to watch somebody come up, and they love to watch them come up and be a star. So it's got these guys adrenaline going. They're playing like they're playing at Taft Middle School.
That's it.
And this is good. This is good for the game. And it's good for the NBA. And I hope that their TV ratings and stuff come out. But I think it's been great. I don't think it's hurt the NBA at all. I think there's been some terrific, one game after another has gone down to the wire here in the last week.
Yeah.
And they're watching.
Yeah, excellent point. I think what it tells us is that when the spotlight is off the superstars, which we've been so focused on, you see this is a very talented league. These are the best players in the world. So either way, but the league is so brand dominant that we've been seeing this thing build up. All right, KD's going to the Nets, LeBron to the Lakers. Let's see what happens with that. But that worked its way out, didn't happen, so be it. So with the remaining time we have, there's one other segment we can talk about. We talk about the actual coaching change that happened. I was close but no cigar when I was saying that I thought that Chauncey Billups was going to get the job in Boston. Come to find out, he was one of the finalists. He was interviewing with them on a regular basis, but ended up going to Coach Ime Udoka, who has a background, obviously, with USA Basketball. He's been part of the Popovich coaching tree. Went to Philadelphia as well. And here you see him talking to Jaylen Brown, who's going to be one of the superstars that they focus on. So clearly there's a relationship. So I'll start with you, Patrick. What do you think about this hire?
I think it's one of those things where you don't know and you got to see what he has to prove.
Sure.
He definitely has the basketball history. He was he played at Portland State. He played his rookie. He got undrafted in 2000. Played his rookie year with LaMarcus Aldridge in Portland with the Trailblazers, and he played for the Nigerian national team. So he played. Then he's got the pedigree with Pop, right? He was on the bench. He's got a ring as an assistant coach. So he's got the history, but he's never been a head coach before. And he's in a sticky situation. He has an all-star in Jason Tatum that hasn't quite hit his ceiling yet, has some more growing to do. Do they sign Jaylen Brown to that extension, or how are we going to do there? We don't know who's going to be the second best player or third best player on that team, and he's now the East is deep. So, you're going to come with Brooklyn's healthy. You got to play Brooklyn and all these teams. So he's got a tough job ahead of him.
Yeah. Does it? Are you surprised that they chose an African-American coach, John? I mean, we kind of talked about that with the tensions there. Are you surprised that it's someone that doesn't come from a spot? Oh, then hey, he said what you already knew, Patrick. Ron said he could pick women too. Nia Long. That's right. That was one of the things you're supposed to lead with that one.
Yeah.
Hey, so then he's like, so are you bringing Nia to the games? Like, what's up? So what do you think about that from a historic racial standpoint when you talk about the racial history with Boston? I mean, there's going to have to be some way that he's going to address it. But I wonder if this is that thing where they'll pick a Nigerian-born compared to Detroit's West Side 7 Mile born cat, to step in. And what do you think about that, John?
Well, you got to go back and you got to remember that Red Auerbach gives up the reins and names Bill Russell the coach. So, I mean, that's 1968, 69 maybe.
Sure.
Maybe even earlier.
Here comes Casey Jones.
So, I mean, they've had, ML Carr, Sat Sanders, Doc Rivers, Casey Jones. I'm just going to say this. You don't even get in the interview room at an NBA. We talked about this last week. That's the pinnacle. If you're a coach, you coach in the NBA, that's the pinnacle. That's the top line. There's very few guys that can say, I was an NBA head coach. So to even get in the room, and what was Boston looking for? Obviously, they're looking for somebody who can relate to these young players they have and who can make them better. Okay? So obviously, in the process, he stood out. Okay, now, here it comes down to it, Lindsay. It's game 7. You're down 1. There's 9 seconds on the clock. That's how you get judged. Okay?
What play did you draw up and what happens? Do they execute?
Now, what you got to hope as a coach is that you have enough relationship with the front office that you can convince them that we need some more players here. They don't have enough, because when it comes down to it in that league, they're going to expose your weaknesses. They're going to show you what your weaknesses are real fast.
And I think I think their roster is getting worse. Personally, I think
they just let Kemba go. They let Kemba Walker go.
You lose Kemba, you pick up Al Horford, who's, come on, man, he's been on his back 9. He's been on his back 9. His glory days are over. Great guy, great basketball mind, great, all that, blah, blah, blah. But he's on his back 9.
What you say, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something big in the way. While we have a little bit of time, we got about 2 minutes. What do you guys think about the hire of Carlisle going back to the Pacers, but also his comment, rubber stamping head coach in waiting, former head coach, that is, Jason Kidd, to be the next head coach for the Mavericks? I mean, that seems a little unorthodox, doesn't it? That you have to have that somebody coming out saying that, or is it almost like a media play to say, this is where we're leaning, let's see what kind of feedback we get?
Well, it doesn't surprise me that he goes back to Indiana. I personally don't think it's a good hire. I think it's time for Rick Carlisle to, get the popcorn and get in the lazy boy and sit back and enjoy watching the game that's been so good to him.
Yeah, it definitely has been good to him.
Yeah, I think it's time. I'm not with the hire. And as far as Jason Kidd going to the Mavs, he's going to get his chance, I believe. And the jury will be out and we'll watch him. But to me, if I owned a team in the NBA, I wouldn't have hired Rick Carlisle.
Yeah, it's almost like a safe hire to kind of like put people at peace until they do something else. Well, guys, with that being said, I want to thank you guys. This has been another great show. I want to thank all the people who chimed in, from Rod Wilson, Demetrius Meehead, Blackshears, Jamal Sweezy, Swift, of course, Orlando Watkins, Kevin Marshalls, and our guy, Aaron Mays, who's been holding us down since day one. Also want to shout out to Streets of Talking Podcast Network, Don Houston, Clarence Babor, and our great sponsor, Horatio Williams and the Horatio Williams Foundation. And Terry, we miss you, man. I want to get you back. I hope you ain't over here trying to get on another podcast to leverage something against us. But for now, it's just us. It's Lindsey Huddleston with Don and Patrick Rutherford, Orlando Watkins on the ones and twos. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.